Hi, everybody. Brian Norcross here with a Sunday morning update on Tropical Storm Debby. Debby is trying to consolidate, winds up to 60 miles per hour now in the Gulf of Mexico to the west of Fort Myers, moving north-northwest at 13, so a little bit to the west, due north, just paralleling the Florida coast right now. And the pressure is down. So all these are indications that the storm is strengthening, and it's strengthening a little faster than expected. The thing that is saving us here is there's a bunch of dry air here on the west side of the storm. So we only have half a tropical storm, but it's a very robust half a tropical storm. I tell you, if this side over here had moisture in it so that the system really could crank up, this would be a formidable hurricane here by later today. But this process looks like it's going to be relatively steady and not explosive because of the dry air. And to tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure what it is that is producing that much dry air. We know there are some upper level winds that are coming around like this and pushing on it, but at what level they're doing that and how so much is affecting it really isn't clear to me at the current time. But anyway, thankfully it is. Now, the Hurricane Center does an analysis of how far out the strong winds extend and the 40 mile per hour or higher winds, tropical storm force winds. And here you see them brushing the coast. So this is why we have tropical storm warnings all along those coastal sections when these bands come through. And they come in surges. It's not all at one time and then it's over. I can tell you here in southeast Florida, last night there was a big band that came through, blasted through here, blew things around. Actually, there was a tornado in that band and or possible tornado in that band. So they can be very, very robust. So right now, all the bands are on the west coast of the state, moving north up the coast. And on the east coast of the state, you can see there's not even any clouds. Now, once the sun gets out and in this very tropical air, I expect we're going to see bands develop farther out. But for right now, the storm is trying to consolidate, and that's all part of the strengthening process. So everybody on the west coast and even down in the lower keys, beware when you get one of these bands. They are going to be very gusty and strong and enough to take down branches and maybe even knock out some power locally. There you see it. You see the circulation over in here, but there's the extent of the outer bands right in there and not much over here, just a few showers on the east coast. That's it. We can look at that close up and you can see where, as of the time I'm recording this, about 8:30 in the morning, look at this band that went through Fort Myers, up Punta Gorda, Englewood. There's another one up toward Sarasota, pushing north toward Tampa Bay. And then this is the strongest ones, the stronger ones in here. The way these generally work, and maybe this one could have some gusty winds with it. The way these generally work is the farther out from the center you get, the stronger the gusts are in the wind. The strongest winds measured by the hurricane hunters were up in here. So it's still well offshore. Not that there are no winds out in here, they are, but they're more gusts than sustained winds. So the sustained winds increase as you get here closer and closer to the center of the storm. All right, what's going to happen here through the day today? The expectation is it will continue well offshore, but begin a bend back a little bit to the right, moving more due north. Remember, it's got kind of a western component on it now, so moving a little more due north and intensifying slowly. So when it's west of Tampa, now when we say PM here, we mean middle of the afternoon. So this afternoon, kind of a beam of Tampa Bay as a 70 mile an hour tropical storm approaching hurricane strength. Now remember, this cone is just where the center is going. We saw that the center was on the left side of all that bad weather. So the bad weather is going to be over in here, and I think we will probably get some bands feeding in like this as well later on today on the eastern part of Florida. But most of the wind energy and so forth is going to be on the western half of the peninsula, especially in the coastal counties. All right, now moving north and moving forward in time, the expectation now is that it intensifies into a Category 1 hurricane. This would be overnight tonight, so Monday a.m. means in the overnight hours. The estimate now is 85 miles per hour. So if they're forecasting 85, then you imagine 95 or 100. You're forecasting Category 1, you imagine Category 2. But in any case, there's confidence, and I'm going to show you the confidence models in just a minute, but there's high confidence that this is the direction the storm is going through the day today, and then after that the confidence becomes very, very low. But there is confidence that it is going to make landfall somewhere here in the Big Bend. Exactly where, obviously, if it comes up this way, you'll have less effect in Tampa to Cedar Key corridor and more effect to Tallahassee. If it comes up more over here, then you're going to get more effect farther south. And it's in terms of storm surge, about the wind, I'll talk more about the storm surge forecast in a second, but if the storm is in this location here and the wind is coming around like this, that's when it's going to push the water toward Tampa Bay, and that's when you're going to get the maximum surge from the storm. So the maximum water level that you get above high tide is a combination of the tide and the effects of the storm. So when we get to that forecast, you'll see all up and down the coast how those forecasts change. But it has to do exactly with where the storm is in relation to the high tide cycle. High tides come about noon. So that, I think, is going to be good news for Tampa Bay, because noon today, it's going to be down here to the south. Noon tomorrow, or early afternoon tomorrow, it's going to be up in here somewhere. So from a Tampa standpoint, metropolitan Tampa, looks like the tide cycle is going to work in your favor, but other locations on the coast, Cedar Key, for instance, maybe not. You're more likely to get something near the maximum. So like I said, up to landfall, and notice the Hurricane Center still has it at 75 miles per hour, even just after landfall. And so Tallahassee, if I were in Tallahassee, I would be sure I had my food and everything, that I could stay home today. And don't park your car under any of those trees. And get the car away from trees in a parking garage, either at the state government or maybe at Florida State or FAMU, some kind of parking garage. And because a lot of places you can't not park it under a tree in Tallahassee. So I would be making those preparations today. You could even probably do it in the morning, early in the morning, but get your car in a safe place and stay in a safe place when the storm is coming through. And then we get to this other phase. So I'm saying 3 phases of the storm. The first one is today on the west coast of the state with this brush of the outer bands, but very gusty outer bands up the coast. Second one is the landfall there in the Big Bend and the Nature Coast, it's called in Florida. And the third is this slog from North Florida through Georgia, the coastal sections of Georgia, South Carolina to North Carolina. Exactly where the storm goes and where the rain falls and where the storm surge is, all of that remains to be seen. We really don't know, because we don't know the exact track. Hurricane Center is taking the storm up here and then down here and then back up here. So you see, so the idea is some strengthening and a little bit offshore and then weakening when it comes ashore, but that's all we don't know exactly what's going to happen there. And when we look at the various computer forecast models, you can see why we don't know. The wiggling around because there's no steering, so there's no river of air. So think of it as when it's over here, it's in a river of air. The high pressure that's driving it is like this. There's a dip in the jet stream up here, and there you go. There goes the storm up into this point. And then imagine now it's now in a lake. It's sitting there in a lake, and the only thing that can move it is either some kind of asymmetry in the storm or sort of a gust one way and then a gust the other way. And so it can drift around, and it can even drift back on itself. Look at the H-Wharf model. It takes it, I can't even hardly follow it. It takes it up and loops it around, comes back here, and then goes up this way. So all kind of possibilities. Here's the GFS. Look at that. Out and then back and so forth. So we have forecasts. You know, if you look at your phone or you watch TV in the Carolinas or in Georgia, you're going to get a forecast, but we don't know what's going to happen. We really don't. We can only make an estimate, and the estimate is 20 to 30 inches of rain in some part of the corridor here from North Florida on up to North Carolina. So this is daunting. The Hurricane Center is using the consensus of these models, but the consensus is more or less meaningless in this kind of situation. So when we talk about the uncertainty, here's how we look at it. We don't know exactly where the storm is and what the weather pattern is exactly. So they modify it a little bit, and they say maybe it's here, maybe it's there, maybe it's there. And so the idea is that later this morning, the storm is generally in that location, and there's pretty good confidence that that's where it is. But now watch as we go forward in time. So now we have confidence that it's going to make landfall here. You can see this clustering of the lines in where the cone is there. So that's confidence. But notice shortly after landfall, then it starts branching out. Still, most of the L's are up in here, so confidence that it moves inland into North Florida, maybe South Georgia. Then, though, we get Wednesday, Thursday, and it's all over the place. We don't know whether it's going to move out. Now, today, most of the L's are over land. Yesterday, most of them were over the water a little bit. But again, a little bit of deviation one way or the other. It's over land, it's over the water. Nobody can give you an answer. If somebody tells you they know what's going to happen here this week in terms of exactly where the storm is going to track, they're not telling you the truth. Nobody knows. But we can say that any stalling, looping tropical system is extremely dangerous and drops a tremendous amount of rain. So here are the warnings that are in effect right now for Florida. And again, you see that reds all along the coast there. That's that brushing of those outer bands, tropical storm warnings. In other words, expect winds 40 miles per hour or higher with gusts up to 50, 60, maybe 70 miles per hour in there, enough to take out power. And then just a watch inland to just about the Orlando area. And then farther north, this is, of course, where the worst of this is going to be as the system comes in. So in that purplish area there, that's the hurricane warning zone. Remember that if the storm tracks like this, then the winds come around counterclockwise. So they're coming like, let me draw like this. Winds coming like that. So it's when it's pushing on shore, the winds come from the water to the land. That's when you get the strongest winds. So that's why the hurricane warning is sort of to the right side of the cone. Tallahassee under a tropical storm warning, meaning you can still have hurricane force gusts, but sustained winds are thought to be between 40 and 70 miles per hour or so in the capital. Perry, you are right in it, and all the other cities and towns over here on the right side of wherever this track is going to be, you're going to get the gustier winds. It'll die off pretty quickly as it goes ashore, but still, it tends to spread out some. So again, this is a Hurricane Idalia situation, but not as strong as Idalia, we don't believe, and but longer lasting than Idalia across a corridor there from North Florida, the Carolinas, looks like right now. In terms of storm surge, the peak storm surge zone, again, is on the right side where that wind is coming ashore, and the forecast is for up to 10 feet above normal high tide. Now, the good thing is that part of the coast, called the Nature Coast, there's a state park there, there's a lot of preserves, it's very marshy land, and so forth. But there are some houses in the general area along there, and it's going to be bad. But mostly, that like I said, that is the least populated part of the coast. But then we get down to some of the communities down in here, Steenhatchee and Horseshoe Beach. And again, just like last year in Idalia, high storm surge is forecast in those communities and up the Swanee River. There's a community called Swanee down there, all in this high storm surge zone. And then we get farther south to the northern part of Tampa Bay, and then it comes down, but still in metropolitan Tampa Bay, up to 4 feet if it coincides with the high tide. Now, as I said, it does not look like right now that high tide and the maximum push of water are going to coincide. But in places that they do, then here are the numbers for the maximum expected combination effects of the storm pushing the water up and then the tide pushing the water up as well, above the normal high tide level. And then you see over here Apalachicola, because this whole big bend of Florida is like a catcher's mitt. It catches the water, and then the water has nowhere to go but over the land. It's super vulnerable, the most vulnerable place in the whole coast, as a matter of fact, to storm surge. Down to the south, again, coinciding with high tide, it is possible here later this morning or early afternoon, if the storm is up in here, the water is coming around like this, you're going to see water rise along the coast here. But I think the storm is far enough offshore. But still, water will rise all along the coast, and you will have probably some coastal flooding, I imagine, and then less on down to the south. All right, so here's the timing of the moisture and the movement here. This is this morning. So here's that main band right there that's bringing those individual bands up along the west coast. Notice the moisture is flowing up on the east coast. So it's a very moist atmosphere. So we expect that once the sun comes out and you get typical development due to the energy from the sun, we're going to see bands set up here that feed in like this. I think so. The whole state is subject to getting those. And then watch what happens as it moves to the north. So this is later today, and then that's tomorrow morning. The environment here looks conducive except for the dry air. Thankfully, the dry air is feeding in. You see all the dry air in here. So that's what's keeping it from being a super strong hurricane, it seems like. But what's going to happen is that this moisture is going to start pushing up against the front. There's a stationary front up in there that actually has made the weather in much of the south very comfortable with drier air. But now the tropical moisture is going to start pushing in. So already by tomorrow morning, you're going to see moisture increasing here, even with the storm way back at the coast. And then, of course, we have that slow movement in some way over in here, and whatever it's going to do over in here, just enhancing the moisture. The National Weather Service, this is the Weather Prediction Center, makes these forecasts. You see they have a bullseye in here of 24 to 30 inches from the Savannah to Charleston area, but don't take that as gospel. The maximum could occur a little farther up the coast. It could occur back closer to the Jacksonville area. We don't know where it's going to occur. But what happens is that the wind comes around like this, and now the wind is going uphill, right? So you have the low country right along the coast, and then it goes uphill. As it goes uphill, it makes more rain uphill, and then that has to come, then that kind of comes back down, and it can fall in the coastal sections. Also falls uphill, then you have flooding. So this has all the makings of a water disaster of some kind, from incredible rain from North Florida up to North Carolina. Also, if the center does something like this, then out in here it's going to get stronger, and so what's that going to do? That's going to push the water up toward the coast as storm surge, and it also holds the rivers back. So we have this combination of effects. None of it is, in fact, it's all bad. I was going to say none of it is good, but it's all bad. But exactly how bad, exactly where, is just unknowable at the current time. So just urge everybody, if you're under any kind of a warning, just pay attention to what's going on in your area, to your local officials. Stay in close touch with us. Of course, Fox Weather is on all through this. And there's the way you get Fox Weather. A lot of folks tell me, is Fox Weather on my TV? I didn't know if it is or not. You just go to that that address there, foxweather.tv, and it has all the instructions on if you have Apple TV or you have a Samsung TV or you have Roku or whatever you have Amazon Fire. It tells you how to get Fox Weather. And yes, on many, many cable systems, you have access to Fox Weather. So it is a channel on your TV. Relatively new, but we're here. Mike Seidel is reporting for us now from outside of St. Petersburg. And so we'll have full coverage. And you can also, by the way, scan that QR code. So stay with us and keep you up to date here. And of course, on Fox Weather throughout the day and the night. All right, have a good Sunday.